What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. So recently, guys, I made a poll on which video you guys wanted to see next, and a pretty decent amount of people have been voting for gold inflation and how to profit. I was actually quite surprised to see this result, but I decided to make the video right away. So that's gonna be the subject that we're going to talk on this video. So this video will have two chapters. The first one being gold inflation and why it happens. The second chapter is going to be on how to make profit out of this gold inflation. So obviously, if you already know about gold inflation and why that happens, you can directly skip to the second part of the video. So with that being said, let's get started to the first chapter. So at first, I want to talk about the devaluation of gold. So gold inflation is a period where there is too much gold leading to a gold devaluation. So let's just take the example of the US dollar to better understand this. So as you can see from the 1960s, the amount of US dollar has been going up by a substantial amount. There was a lot of printing of new money, and so the amount of the US dollar has been going up over time. And so the US dollar's value has been decreasing. So basically, the purchasing power of the US dollar has been decreasing as well over time. And that's basically very simple to understand. You just take, for example, a glass of whiskey, and then you just keep pouring, adding in water. At the end, the whiskey is not going to taste like whiskey. At the end, it's gonna just taste like water, right? So it's basically the same for gold as well. The more gold you have on the server or on the region, the less value it will have over time, right? So next, I want to talk about the creation of gold. So gold is mostly created, it is different than earned, by clearing content. For example, T3 episode dungeons, like Argos or Adventure Island that rewards with gold as well, right? So one character or alt at 1370 can create up to 2,900 gold every week. And so that's basically from the hard mode of episode dungeons and the phase one of Argos. So let's say there is like 10,000 characters at 1370. That will be a total of 29 million gold created every week, and that just from the alts and stuff like that, right? And over time, those alts are gonna reach higher gear score, and they're gonna be able to reach Argos Phase 3 and stuff like that. So they're gonna create even more gold than these 29 million. So as you can see, this is the graph of the gold creation over time. So as you can see, this number is going to increase, always increase, right? As more there is more and more odds, there is more and more people who reach higher gear score. They're gonna be able to generate more gold, create more gold, and so this number is going to go up. But with that, the gold purchasing power or the gold value is going to go down over time. But as you can see, this is more like an unstable graph. But over time, this is going down, right? But sometimes the gold value goes up because we have some market crashes and stuff like that. So sometimes it goes up, but the overall graph is going down, right? So next, I want to talk about the burning of gold. So gold can be burned, and in fact, honing clicks is where most of the gold is burned, or if you wish, evaporated, right? So as you can see on this image right here, this is from Loa On, and so they basically show on where most players burn their gold, right? So as you can see, this is honing, and this has a part of almost 60%. So that's about that's 60% of most players actually burn their gold, right? So it is important to know that honing is actually pretty important to burn players' gold, so that they can basically control the inflation by a little. But that's not gonna be the case, and I'm gonna explain on why. Generally speaking, most free-to-play players do not hone their alts as much as they hone their main, right? If you parked your alt, let's say 1370, you're gonna park your alt there for a pretty decent amount of time, right? You're not gonna hone them every day on every week basis, right? You're gonna try to accumulate the gold that they give at 1370, and then whenever you have a decent amount of too much gold, then you're gonna try to hone that alt, but you're gonna focus more on your main, right? Especially if your main didn't reach 14, 15 yet, that's where you want to focus first, right? So the main earns gold. Your main character earns gold either from Argos or hard mode of episode dungeons and stuff, and that percentage of that gold earned is going to be spent on the on your main character's holding, right? As you can see, the holding takes a pretty decent amount of percentage in the gold spending. But instead, from your parked odds, right, that odd is gonna also earn gold. But there is no really spending on that gold, right? That gold is basically created, but it is just you're just gonna keep that gold. You're not gonna really spend that gold into honing your odds. So that gold is going to be kept. It's gonna remain in the system until it will be spent, right? And so, whenever that gold is spent by most players, that leads to inflation or the rising price of materials and stuff like that on the open market, because that's basically the time where people actually flex their gold. They earn the gold and now they want to spend it, right? And when most people spend that gold, that leads to inflation, and you cannot really feel how do I say the gold devaluation until that happens, because that's where you really feel that actually, oh, this is actually an inflation because you see the price rising, right? Um, so next, I want to talk about the change of behavior from the free-to-play players, most essentially, right? So as you can see, usually free-to-play player is on the supply side of the market, and pay-to-win player is on the demand side of the market, and that creates like a stable, kind of like a stable market, I would say. So as you can see, the free-to-play players is on the supply; they are a seller, and pay-to-win players are the one who buys what is sold, right? Most free-to-play players do not actually buy as much as pay-to-win players will do, right? Um, but that free-to-play behavior of selling is actually changing from time to time on two different scenarios, right? So the number one is they stop selling their tradable materials and instead use it for honing. So that reduces the supply of that particular item in the open market, because they just ask themselves, like, is it really worth for me to sell this material? I just want to use it, right? Because it's not really. They don't really feel like it's worth to sell at that price, but they want instead to use that item so they can reach, let's say, 14, 15, so they can access Valtan normal mode, right? So number two is a portion of free-to-play players which starts to be on the demand side of the market, right? So that happens. That happened in at 1370 for Argos, whenever there was a lot of people who didn't reach that gear school, and then the materials that they gather, they didn't actually sell them. They stopped selling them, but instead, they not only use that tradable material, but also they are buying from the open market because they want to reach 1370 as fast as possible so that they can enjoy that content. So I do think it's also happening, kind of like happening for 14, 15 for Vatan. I don't think it's still happening. We're not sure yet what is happening, what is going to happen, but we're going to pay close attention on that, right? So on top of that, you also have more and more pay to win players who are likely to buy gold to spend it on the open market, because obviously, for example, we have a Glavier. They're gonna they're gonna buy the gold, and then they're gonna spend that gold to buy the honor shards or life shards, so that they can rush that new class as fast as possible to 1370 or 1400, something like that, right? So they're gonna likely to spend more gold into the open market, and that creates more demand, right? Um, so as you can see, that's basically what I explained here. When there is no catalyst, and catalyst is basically a new raid, new class, new relic tier, etc., etc., right? So when there is no catalyst, free to play is the seller, pay to win is the buyer. When then there is catalyst, free to play players have like they kind of like stop supplying, or some of them becomes on the demand side, and pay to win players have actually more demand for that catalyst, right? So now I want to move on. The second chapter of this video is on how to make profit from these events. So the first I want to talk about in this chapter is going to be that the market is actually a wave. So the market always has ups and downs, just like the wave in the ocean, right? So let's call that a volatility, right? So there is two different types of volatility. So the first one is going to be a short-term volatility, and for me that's on a weekly basis, right? So for example, let's just take the example of shards. They are more expensive on Wednesday, and then they go down, on Friday, Saturday, Sundays, Monday, and that's basically explained because on Wednesday we don't have any chaos gate, right? But on the following days, on Thursdays like that, we have chaos gate, and that increased the supply of that item in the open market. And Wednesday we don't have chaos gate, so basically it's pretty much obvious, when the supply is lower, price increase. That's basically what happens. So you have this volatility of ups and downs, and then ups and downs, and this cycle repeats. So the second is the long term volatility, right? So that could be on monthly basis, that could be 1 month, 2 month, and it just depends on how fast actually Smug is release the new content, new class, and stuff like that, right? So that's basically a catalyst that I previously mentioned. So volatility is very important because that's the way you make profit, right? So if you don't have volatility, let's say this is a straight line, you can't really make profit because you cannot buy low and sell high, right? So whenever you know the price trend, this is very important. You have to identify the price trending, right? You know when it's going up and you know when it's going down, right? So that identifying the price trend is very important, and also the players' sentiment is also very important. For example, you have to know if, for the Valentine release, if people are gonna focusing on either having as much 14 15 character as possible, or are they gonna focus to push their main to 14 15 because there is less player at 14 15, right, on their main. So you have to really also identify what is the overall player's sentiment. Next is also you have to identify what is the upcoming catalyst, right? If you know what is to come, you can prevent in advance what is gonna increase in price and stuff like that. So it is also a very important factor on what is on how you're gonna be able to make profit, right? So next, I want to talk about hedging, and hedging is basically on how to protect the value of your gold, right? So because during inflation, the gold value goes down, and so if you spend your gold during inflation, basically during the time when your gold have less value, you're actually making a loss, and that doesn't include honing, because you obviously you need to hone, right? But that's basically when, if you spend your gold into the open market during the gold inflation, you're basically losing value on that gold, because basically your gold has less value. So you don't want to hold. You can hold your gold, and it's good to hold your gold during your gold inflation, but it's very very bad to spend your gold during the inflation, because you want to have as much gold as possible, so that when the market goes to a deflation phase or a market crash, if you want, that's where you want to buy as much items as you can, so that you can sell them after when there is another inflation, right? Because the market is a wave, remember, there is always ups and downs, and you want to buy it when it goes down, right? So the best way to hedge against gold inflation is to buy undervalued items. What I mean by undervalued items is an item that is low in price at the moment, but has a fundamental value in the future. Like, for example, that's gonna be the honor shards, and I'm gonna explain on why that later on. Um, so there, basically you don't want to buy during inflation. That's, I already say that. And so it is important to have as much gold as possible before the market crash happens. That is when your gold has big value, and that is when you want to spend it, right? So the market crash, you buy, and then when there is inflation, you sell. That's pretty simple, right? And so as you can see on this image, this is actually from my video that I made on April 2nd. And so that's when I told I told my viewers that I think that Onoshar are gonna reach a rise in price, right? And so I showed that it was at 74 gold at that moment, and so I said that it's worth to buy, or it's worth to keep them, to hold them, to not sell them now, because I did say that it's gonna go up in price. And eventually, after a month, a bit more, it did went up to 124 gold, because an upcoming catalyst is always when there is a rising in price, right? So next, I want to talk about, to not follow what the majority of people thinks or does, right? So when most people sell, you want to buy, and when most people buy, you want to sell. And of course, that doesn't. You shouldn't hold or buy any YOLO items, right? You need to have a fundamental value on the item to apply this rule, right? So this is a golden rule on making profit on the open market, right? So as you can see on this image, this is a comment on one of my videos I made on April 2nd, I think. And so this is basically about a viewer who's telling me that I should sell everything, right? So let's read that. Have you not seen the market's trend? It's any day now that these three stones will be at 1 gold each. One on the west coast, Firetown, which is the highest population server. At this time, Guardian stones are at 6 gold each, and Destruction stone are at 17 gold each. So he's basically saying that the price of the materials are gonna go up really really fast, so you should sell everything now, right? So that was basically the overall sentiment of the players, and so I answer that yes, supply is higher than demand at the moment, and so the big gold juicers or the whales have already maxed out their gear, I guess. So, but yeah, who knows? With the release of the new class, that can change. At least that's what I think, right? And I thank him for his feedback. And so this viewer right here responded, "It won't. Guardian and Destruction Stone will keep going down till they hit 1 gold, just like Tier 1 and Tier 2 version." And at that moment, that was shortly after a market crash, whenever Argos was released. Um, so really, the overall sentiment of the moment is you should sell everything now because it's gonna go to 1 goal, right? So that's when most people sell. You want to buy, or at least you don't want to sell, right? You don't really necessarily have to buy, but you don't want to sell at when everyone is selling, panic selling, right? So when that's really really important to identify this. Do not really follow the mail of what majority of people does because they just do it, right? You need to have a fundamental value on why you need to sell right now or why you need to buy right now. Next, I want to talk about emotions, and this is actually pretty important. Emotions are the biggest factor that can mess you up or that you can fail on trading, right? So, first one is greed. So remember, we trade to make profit, not because we love that item to that we buy them. We buy that item to make profit. So therefore, they do not hesitate to make profit, to sell that item to make profit when you can. It's never a loss to sell for a profit. How many times I've seen some people in the stock market who buys actually who doesn't sell even though they are in profit because they want to make more profit. They are greedy, right? And so they think it's gonna keep going up, and then the next day it crashes. And so they could have sold and make profit, but they didn't, and they wanted to be greedy, and in the end they are in loss. So that happens a lot, right? Do not be greedy. Next is FOMO, fear of missing out. Do not buy something just because you see the price rising. So like, do not chase something because just you see the price rising. And so if you already see something that has been rising like 20%, 30%, 100%, you're already late for the party. You're already late. You should have bought them before it has that rise, right? So now when that happens, move on and plan on your next move. You should move on and you should just plan on your next move, right? Number three, YOLO. Do not invest without any evidence of value for that item. You need to do some research. You need to see what is the overall sentiment of the player base. You need to know what is to come, what is to the new content, what is the new class releasing. Are people focusing on their ults, or they're focusing on their ults on their main to push to 14-15 or to 14-45. You need to consider a lot of factors before you invest or before you hold into an item, right? It is very very important to not just YOLO on something. It is very very bad. And also do not obviously go all in on a specific item. Let's say for honor shards, when I started investing on honor shards back in the market crash, I didn't actually invest all of my gold at once. Um, it was a 74 gold when I first bought it, and I think I bought like 100 of them at the beginning, and the price actually went down from there. It went down all the way to 59 gold, and so I still had gold in my wallet. So I was keep buying. I was still keep buying them when they were going down. So basically, that is called averaging down, and so I kept buying them, and then obviously I waited. At some point, I stopped buying and I waited until the price rise, and obviously it did end up reaching 120 gold, and I've been able to sell at I think it was 112 gold or something like that. and so I made profit out of it, right? So it is very important. Do not YOLO, do not invest based on in something, and do not go all in. This is very, very important. So guys, that will be pretty much it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something out of this. By no mean I'm trying to be the smart guy here, but I just want to share my understanding of the lost dark market, on how you can make profit and stuff like that. And I hope it helped you. I hope you enjoyed. As well, I will spoil my next video. It will be on the basics of selling in Lost Ark, because there is really a lot of disadvantage of seller in Lost Ark. You know, so there is also a lot of scams. So there is a lot of features that you can also simplify in order for you to sell more easier, right? So that's what I'm going to talk on my next video. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you on the next video. Peace.